Hello. I can't. Oh, yeah, microphone over. Got to remember to bring my microphone in location. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Behind my head is Phoebe, and this is Tristan, and this is Step Back History. So, if this is your first time in the chat room, I see there's nobody here right now. Oh, here we go. So this is your first time here. Every Thursday before the new Step Back video comes out. Hello. I do a 1 hour long live stream and basically just talk to the audience, take questions. Phoebe, she was behind me. She's left now. And I talk to the audience for the hour leading up to the new Step Back video that comes out. So I can see that all the usual suspects are coming on in. Ooh, Positron Undervolt, you sound like a new person. Phoebe is my cat. So I guess I should probably talk about the upcoming month when it comes to stuff. Thank you very much, Positron Undervolt. I appreciate the nice words. So let me just do some quick housekeeping super fast. I just want to mention that, first of all, the video for this week is going to be on Mormons. It's a world religions video on Mormons, on Mormonism or the Church of Latter-day Saints or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, this month I look like I have my guest for Subscriber Appreciation Day, and it's going to be, I'm very excited to say that February's Subscriber Appreciation Day is going to be Mexi, the leftist YouTuber who has some pretty awesome stuff in it. So if you are a fan of Mexi, the last Sunday of February, come on in. She is a very well-read Marxist, so we'll have a very good discussion. Another thing that is coming up for Step Back. All right, I got some questions. I'm going to start lining them up. But another thing that's going to be coming up for Step Back is in March, I'm going to be doing a new Dungeons & Dragons series where I'm going to be the DM. And so I have my own D&D show that's starting in mid-March. So if you're a fan of D&D, like I always mention, March 12th on the Dungeon Dwellers channel is going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Time, is when Knights of Dice, the show, is going to start. And it's got a few YouTubers who are going to be players in the campaign. My friend Xander, who runs Art Explains, and my friend Cheryl, who runs The Roving Naturalist, are both going to be players in it. And I got a few other people who are from a couple of people who are from my other campaigns. It's going to be pretty fun. It's going to be a good time. Other than that, just working on stuff. All right, opinion on anarchism. I'm getting it. I like anarchism. I like anarchist philosophy. I agree with most of what is contemporarily part of anarchist discourse. So for those who aren't in the know, anarchism is a political philosophy that is centered around either the lack of a need or the need to interrogate all forms of hierarchy. And so the anarchy stands for without archons or without rulers. And so anarchists tend to try to show the negative effects of having hierarchical relationships and the inherent violence that comes with any sort of hierarchical system, such as capitalism or the state. And that's where really the buck ends, and then anarchists tend to branch out in all sorts of different directions from there based on what they think an anarchist society will look like, how it will come about, how fast it will come about, and what kind of things need to be done to do it. And the anarchists that I would probably put myself in that camp, but I am not as urgent as a lot of anarchists are. I don't think that anarchism is something that's going to happen in my lifetime. I think that it's a thing that will require a very different technological and economic reality than we have now. The show, the D&D show is going to be on at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Do you watch Secular Talk? If so, do you have any thoughts? Would you do a simulcast of some sort with him if offered? Let me check. I think I've heard of Secular Talk, but let me just confirm. I think I've seen a few Secular Talk videos. I'm not subscribed. I think that, but it looks like a good channel. And I mean, I would do a show with Secular Talk. I don't know if Secular Talk would do a show with me. He's kind of in a different league than I am. I think he does like a radio show / podcast, right? So, I mean, if he reached out to me and asked me to do a show, I'd do it. But that'd be a great opportunity. But if the Girthax, if you have an in with them, I mean, send me an email, Tristan@setbackhistory.com. What do you think about H.P. Lovecraft? Cool ideas. I'm kind of underwhelmed by the actual books that he's made, and very underwhelmed by how openly racist he was. Alrighty. Yeah, so I guess it's a new thing for anarchy. Unfortunately, anarchy is a thing that is often misunderstood. And I mean, there is some reasons for that too. Historically, anarchists, especially around the turn of the last century, so around like the early 1900s, were pretty much terrorists in some fashion. So, the reputation is hard to live down in some cases. Secular Talk is part of the Young Turks family. I'd go on the Young Turks. I know I don't agree with them on some things, but I'd be on it. I mean, I think that it'd be really cool to do something cool like that. I met Cenk Uygur once at VidCon. That was kind of fun. I'm writing a paper on Baha'i. What do you think is the most interesting about the religion? I think that understanding the religious movement that Baha'i walked out of, the whole context of religious movements that were going on in mid-19th century Iran would be pretty cool to talk about. What are your thoughts on Dodd-Frank and Glass-Steagall? Dodd-Frank was a kind of weak bill that was designed with cooperation with banks to patch the problems of the financial system in the United States. And they weren't long-term solutions because they really didn't do anything to stop the real problems that were causing the financial crash in 2007. And Glass-Steagall, which was the law that was put in during the Depression by FDR, which meant that investment banks and personal savings banks couldn't be the same company. So that meant that, like, if you were a bank that your entire thing was about managing people's stock portfolios and investments, so like kind of gambling, you could not also be a company that managed other people's money, like their savings, like their bank accounts. Glass-Steagall was the name of that law, and it made American finances very stable for a very long time. But then, because of the growth of the 90s economy, Bill Clinton, with his extreme right-wing changes to the Democratic Party, basically he got rid of the law, and that led to bigger booms and busts, which culminated in the 2007 crash. Because now banks that are taking care of people's personal fortunes are also now using other people's money to gamble on the stock market. Do you think that the American left should join the Democrats or form a third party? Given how America works, the way that American politics works, the Democratic Party is your best hope, because third parties don't accomplish much in the way that the winner take all elections work. Let's see. Did you see today's video from Kurzgesagt? Where do you think we are in the filter scale? I did see Kurzgesagt's video from today, oddly enough, because I usually don't watch new YouTube videos until they're several days old. Kurzgesagt's new video, so it's about great filters and the Fermi paradox. So, where if alien life is so possible, then why aren't there any aliens? Why if life is common, then the universe should be fully colonized multiple times over in the billions of years that have passed. Yet it hasn't, and that is the question. So the question posited was that there's these great filters, so that something is happening, so that it's very rare for life, if not impossible for life, to get out. And the question that we're all facing is whether this point is ahead of us or behind us. And it's scary because, if it's ahead of us, then that means that there's something that could be possible in our future that might result in us, our civilization, never, expanding out and doing all the space things. And I think that one of the things that was mentioned in the Kurzgesagt video was the one on mitochondria. And I think that will end up being the great filter. If I were a betting man, I would say that we're going to find a lot of life out in the universe. It's just all going to be, monocellular life that doesn't have mitochondria. And I think the mitochondria was the big thing. So that would put us past the filter, which would be really good news. Climate change could be a thing. There also could just be multiple filters. And so, who knows? All right, the next question. Do you think the scarcity area advanced civilization can function without money? Yes. In fact, I think that we will never be advanced as a society until we do away with money. So I do think that one of the ways, I think that the only way that we're actually going to escape from capitalism is to invent ourselves into a post-scarcity economy. There's a few technologies that, if they were developed to a certain degree, would basically undermine the way capitalism works. There's mass automation, and then there's also easy fabrication. And those two technologies are developing at a very rapid pace. And I did a paper. I did a presentation last May that was about this subject and about how capitalism's central assumptions that we need to work in order to get the necessities of life, and that resources are scarce and can't be distributed to everybody. Those two things are kind of like what makes capitalism work, and they're both being targeted for destruction very soon. And if we don't deal with that problem, there's going to be some big issues. There's attempts to fix it with things like basic income, but for the most part, I think basic income will only ever be like a transitionary thing, because when you get to a point where you do not need people to work anymore, what do you do at that point? And that's when things get kind of weird. So this is where my Marxism is strange, because I do think that a lot of Marxists and leftists put the cart before the horse when it comes to the means of production, and they make this false assumption that we need to get rid of capitalism now so that the means of production will change. That we can just get rid of capitalism now through our own fiat. And I would argue that most societies are not a thing that we choose. Communism isn't a thing that we're going to bring about intentionally. It's a thing that's just going to occur over a long enough time scale, given the speed of technological progress. And so there's going to be a point, anyways, where the means of production are so out of touch, or that I should say that the society that we built up around the way that our world works is so out of touch with the way the world actually works that they'll be fundamentally incompatible. And that's when revolutions happen. That's what Marx would write, that when revolutions happen. And so I do think that our communist society isn't something that we're going to bring about by getting a revolution together. It's something that's going to come about kind of through a long-term development of the means of production. And one of the ways we could do that is to automate away all work. Once you automate away all work and you move to a post-scarcity economy, a lot of the things that the superstructure of capitalism require to function don't function anymore, and you'll have jump-starting that whole revolution. Okay. Do you think political movements in the U.S. have abandoned militancy? With the exception of ISIS-inspired events, bombings, and shootings in the U.S. are the work of some lone nut. I think that they have abandoned militancy because I don't think militancy works. Militancy and like violent revolution and things like that are not successful strategies for changing the world. When they do succeed, they succeed in basically reproducing the cycle of violence that they started in. When you do a violent revolution of a society, you are essentially in the process of doing that, giving your detractors personal and like really personal reasons to oppose you. Say like you did a communist revolution like the one in Russia. How many people become anti-communist because during the communist revolution, the Bolsheviks and other, communist groups like literally murdered people's families and things like that. And in doing so, sowing the seeds of your own dissent. And there's really no way to change a society violently that won't, in doing so, create its own destruction. And that is why I consider myself a pacifist, because I think it is the only successful strategy in the long term for change. It does mean that we don't get tangible goals on a timeline that would work for us, but it is the only successful social movements have been not so much violent movements, but movements that have built themselves into institutions of their own over time. Have you seen Shawn's latest video on British railways? The same thing is happening in Sweden. The same thing's happening in Canada. Yeah. So Shawn from, yeah, maybe I should call myself no longer a Marxist, but a post-capitalist. Anyways, privatization. Yeah. So that was the... Oh, I got another question to add to my thing. So, yeah, privatization. Shawn and Jen also made a video today that I also, out of the blue, decided to watch. And it's about, today was a good day for YouTube videos. It was a really great video about privatization and kind of some of the more fundamental building block problems with capitalism. It talks about why things like infrastructure really don't work under capitalist models. And I'm doing the video injustice. You just go watch it. It's like Shawn and Jen or just Shawn now, I think is one of the better YouTube channels out there. So you should probably just check it out yourself. But there is a concerted movement to try and reduce the size of the government and give more money to capitalists by taking a public service like railways or postal services or something like that and intentionally defunding them so that they become inefficient and underfunded, so they don't work. And then saying, look, this service doesn't work. We need to privatize it. And then by privatizing it, they turn it into something that is both more expensive and of lower quality. And this has been done with all sorts of transit systems. Transit systems seem to be very susceptible to this, but also they do it for things like the postal service and other types of essential services. And they are slowly chipping away at what makes society function, and they're bad, and we should oppose it whenever it happens. And if we ever get the opportunity to nationalize, which is the opposite of privatizing something, we should. Next question. On the State of the Union and Bernie's response, also general Bernie 2020 thoughts. State of the Union, I watched part of it. I thought it was really long, and it was kind of... Okay, so the whole thing about the State of the Union is that I find the entire thing stupid and pointless because there's so many really dumb rituals associated with it, and no president at the State of the Union is going to outline an actual, agenda for the next year. It's just like a empty ritual that we decided to pick up. It's part of the American political ritual where the president says a bunch of empty platitudes that nobody listens to, and the other political parties, or the political parties, then have all of these standing ovation / sitting and crossing your hand grumbly type rituals. And then there's dragging out people, and there's guests, and the entire thing is empty and pointless. Bernie's response, I thought was really good, especially in contrast to Joe Kennedy's response. Joe Kennedy's response was very nice. It was not a bad speech, but it was complete empty political platitudes. Bernie's was very dry, very full of data, and was very practical. And I think... my wife talked a little bit about this, but I think I agree with her to some extent, which is I think that Bernie's speech and Joe Kennedy's speech both speak to the problem that both the Democrats and Bernie have, which is that Bernie has really good ideas, but he doesn't he's all substance, he's all steak and no sizzle. And that's... in American politics, that's unfortunately not the way to do things. It's not a way to be successful in the long term. Unfortunately, I wish it was, because Sanders has really great ideas for moving America to the point where the rest of the world was in the mid 20th century. Basically, almost everything that Bernie Sanders is proposing are things that most other countries did decades ago. So nothing is crazy, but I would say that nothing he's saying is crazy, but it is lacking in pathos. It is looking in that emotive side. And Joe Kennedy's speech was all I see you, I understand your problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, but it had no substance. So he was all sizzle and no steak. And what I really wish is that there was somebody with Bernie's policy, but somebody who could realize that what people want to hear in a speech isn't so much all the things that are wrong and how to fix it. What they want to do is have their pain heard and know that this guy's on my side, and then have the policy wonkery to back it up. And it seems like we can't get both. And that kind of sucks. And Bernie 2020 thoughts. So I am pro Bernie 2020. I think that I think that after the 2016 election, and after 4 years of what Bernie's been doing, and the kind of what looks like it's going to be a very crowded Democratic primary field, makes me think that that Bernie Sanders has a very good chance of winning the primaries. And in my opinion, if a tree won the Democratic primaries, it would become president. I do think that Trump is already in such a bad position after only 1 year that his campaign is going to fall apart. His entire thing is awful, and it's just destroyed. And so I don't see a long-term I don't see Trump winning a second term. And that's the only thing I have to say about it. And Sanders would totally win an election. And also, it would be amazing to see the debates where Sanders would be able to, he's not that great at debating. He would be if he was prepped well at debating, if he had the Democratic machine behind him, he would be amazing at the debates because he could speak to all the things that Trump supporters resonated with during the last election, and he would have the things to back it up. He would have the answers. He'd have the things to say. I think that'd be really great. So I think that Sanders could win the primaries, and I think that Sanders could do very well in a general election because of that. I know I'm paranoid. Wouldn't mass automation, etc., mean the rulers can just, do away with everybody else? I hope not. I think that is going to be the fulcrum. I feel like there's a deciding point in that we would need to talk. That'd be a tough time. That period in history is going to be chaotic. It's probably going to be violent, and it's going to be ugly. And unfortunately, I'm just going to silence my phone here for a second. I do think that is going to be a rough time. All right. Even if mass automation leads... Oh, yeah, I already read that one. So, yes, there will be a massive crisis. And it's coming sooner rather than later. And we're already seeing the signs of it. All right. Off-topic personal question. Do you play games? If so, what? Yes, I play a few games. I'm a really big fan of D&D. You follow my channel for any length of time, you'll know that I'm really into Dungeons & Dragons. I play it a lot. I have a streamed game that I play in every Wednesday. And starting in mid-March, I'm going to be running a game on the same channel every other week. So really big into D&D. As far as video games go, I come and go from different things all the time. I tend to like strategy games more than other genres. Some of my favorite games right now are I also like procedurally generated games a lot. So my favorite games these days are like RimWorld and Stellaris. I think those two are probably my favorite games at the moment. I'm thinking of giving Factorio a try, and I've also been interested in some of the games coming up, like Mike Brevik, the guy who made one of the guys who made Diablo 2 is making like this kind of Terraria meets Diablo game, and I'm super excited for that. All right. Are you American? Come on. I don't even know if this is a question for me. Oh, it's for Doughboy. Never mind. All right. Check for questions. Do you need advanced technology to build a socialist society? If yes, does that mean the late 19th and 20th socialist movements had no hope of success? Yes. I think that the fact that all of the movements to create socialist societies and the ones that were successful had to result to brutal dictatorships that did not last all that long show that they were they were kind of doomed to fail. I don't think there was a way in the early 20th century, although noble their desires are. Like, I don't disagree with the socialists who fought so hard to make the world a better place. It's just that I don't know of any success. Like, I don't know how it would have been successful at such a time without having a authoritarian regime. It's one of those things where I think that society can't really be jump-started in an artificial way and work. I mean, Stalin learned that the hard way. Mao learned that the hard way. And you'll find that any attempts to like mass update society ends up with a ton of bloodshed. And I think that the least brutal way is to just have, things change with the way that the economy changes. I think one of the things that Marx, one of the things I disagree with Marx on, so Marx was very prescient in saying that the way that the economy runs is, like, to say that society, the way that our economy is structured and the way that the government works reflects is what creates the economy we have, is actually putting the cart before the horse. And actually, our society is like a feudal society was a natural evolution or a kind of emergent governing structure out of an agricultural society, just like how capitalism was one for an industrial society. And late capitalism, like neoliberalism, is the natural outcropping of a service economy society. And that at some point, we're going to have far too much, our technology is going to hit some point where it's going to break and capitalism will no longer be able to function. And then we'll probably have what Marx calls communism. He was just off. He didn't anticipate, or he in the 19th century didn't anticipate some things. So, Marx was smart, but he wasn't omniscient. And so he didn't see a few things. Is not Bernie Sanders a bit too old to run for president? He is pretty old to run for president, but I don't understand why this is such a hang-up. Like, why do you need to run for a full 8 years in order to be a good president? Wouldn't a good president do one term of good stuff and then successor? Like, couldn't you do a lot in 4 years? Or what if you have a good vice president, why does it matter if you die in office? I don't understand why this is a problem. Like, if Bernie Sanders only has 7 more years to live, you might as well use those last 7 years doing good stuff. And being president would allow him to do the most good stuff while in office. Do you think the Dems would ever get behind him truly? I think that some people would grumble, but I do think that Democrats are overall, they're not ideologically driven. Most Democrats anyway, are very pragmatically driven. They're not interested in making the world in keeping their position of power. And if they know that they have to back Bernie Sanders in order to keep their job, they'll do it. They'll just change their positions. Like, Democrats don't stand for things largely. They just kind of do and say whatever they think is going to keep them in office. What music have you been listening to lately? I have a big list on Spotify that I listen to, but let me think of some music that I've been really liking lately. For some reason, I've been listening to a lot of, hear me out on this. I've been listening to a lot of Seth MacFarlane's music, because Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy and like the Orville and stuff, he also is a singer, and he makes this kind of like lounge lizard music that isn't bad. He does like Frank Sinatra covers and stuff like that. It's not typically my jam, like that's not my type of music usually, but it's like the latest thing that I've been into. I've also been listening to a lot of Lorena McKennitt, who's a kind of Celtic-inspired folk artist in Canada. And she's pretty good. I know that this is like super weird music to get into. And so, I don't know, this is just what I've been listening to. I don't have a very sophisticated taste when it comes to music. I just listen to whatever. Oh my. Martin thinks that I look pretty. That is weird. Yeah, I did shave yesterday. I did all the things. Like, I shaved my head yesterday, and I did my face. I do that every once in a while. All right. Phil Edwards. Tristan, do we have to put incentives in place for people and organizations to remain productive if we go to communism? No, I think that if we go to, kind of. Nobody likes working. Like, that's the thing. People don't like working. It's bad. It sucks. Like, general labor kind of sucks. If you don't want to do something, being forced to do it is an unpleasant experience. And any like egalitarian person, any like socialist, any person who considers himself left of center would say that undesirable work should be split up amongst everybody equally so that everybody is taking the same share of the undesirable work. The problem is that in capitalism, you can very easily just shuffle all that undesirable work to a small class of people. And I think that that is a problem. And I think that needs to be addressed. Okay, Sashar, yes, that is Dungeon Dwellers. That is the right channel. The Tales from the Sanguine Isles is the channel that my show is on. So you are in the right place. Oh, thank you very much. I generally prefer Moses Beard type, but you're cute. Oh man, Martin Scholes, you are just adorable. Thank you so much. I don't think I've ever had anybody say nice things about the way I look, so I appreciate it. You've recommended, and William Rome, you've recommended Step Back to Your Teacher. I appreciate that a lot. If your teacher uses my stuff, I would like to hear that. I always want to see what teachers are. I always want to hear about teachers who are talking about my stuff. So yeah, work sucks. We should spread out unpleasant labor as much as we can. But I do think that the only way that we're going to successfully transition to a post-capitalist society is to automate away all undesirable labor, which will take a lot of work. But if you want to move society to a better place, start pushing for automation. Just do it. That's the way to do it. Have you ever read any of E.N.M. Banks' culture novels? I have not, so I can't really say much about them. What's your opinion on Brexit? Well, William Rome, Brexit was a very, very dumb decision that the British made. And I think that the British are going to have an objectively worse country for leaving the European Union. They are giving up a lot of their economic benefits, and they're giving up a lot of opportunity for their young people. And so I do think that Brexit in the long term, if they actually go through with it, which I kind of doubt they will result in a country that is a shadow of its former self. There's a potential of them losing several of the countries within their country, like losing, I could see them losing things like Scotland and possibly other movements as well. And so like Northern Ireland could leave over this. Gibraltar could leave over this. Scotland will definitely leave over it. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think that a bunch of middle-aged English people kind of shit the bed for everybody else on the island. What happens after Corbyn? I don't know. I do not know. And what happens after Corbyn and Sanders? I honestly don't know. The idea of Corbyn and Sanders being in power by this time in like the year 2021 is a very exciting and very interesting prospect, because it seems like it actually could happen in that time frame. But what happens after that, it's impossible to say. That's too far in the future to think about. All right, so Doughboy DeVito, how do you think media like movies, TV shows, books, etc., would be like in a post-capitalist world? I actually was talking about this with Isaac Arthur during the thing, and I actually think that there's going to be one of the more soon things might be AI-driven media. And so what I would say is, like, think about it this way. Think of like, if AI was sophisticated enough, and it will be, to be able to produce a book that's entirely based on your tastes. And so you'd be able to, like, you know, there'd be entire book series, entire, lines of novels, science books, all sorts of stuff that is generated by an algorithm to be entertaining to you. And then imagine spreading that out to movies, to TV shows, to music, to podcasts, to any type of media. For a lot of people, that's going to be a lot of their media. And I do think in the future, most people are going to have TV shows and stuff that are completely designed from the ground up for you. And I'm excited about that idea. I think it'll be interesting. It does mean that pop culture as a thing will actually go away, which is kind of worried about. All right. We have 20 more minutes. I'm still... All right, I got to probably pick up the things. I think that, Phil Edwards, you're onto something with this. This is why Phil Edwards asks, like, it seems to be a huge flaw. This is what prevents me from getting behind any ideas like communism. How can the government create a toilet cleaning rota as an example? And I do think that this is the thing that's holding up a lot of socialist action. And this is why I don't think that communism is a sustainable thing to transition into until a machine is taking care of all of those things that nobody wants to do. Which I think is a way better way than, like, having people. And it sucks because there are people today who are unfortunately forced to do all of those horrible things, who are forced to clean all the toilets because they just weren't born rich enough to avoid it. And I think that's really unfair and it's really unjust. The only problem is I don't know how to solve it in our current context. We need like a kind of different context. Would you consider talking about a post-colonialism country? Yeah. I don't know if I have. I think I have. Maybe in a better way I probably should in the future. When you're talking about capitalism, communism, and socialism, what's your definition for those terms? Capitalism is an economic system where capitalists, a small percentage of people, own all of the things that make the economy work, or at least most of the things that make the economy work. So capitalism is when you have individuals or groups of individuals who own specific things, like things like factories and everything like that. Communism is the kind of end state of the economy that Marx wrote about. Communism is a state where there is no government, there's no capitalism. It is a economy that is fully controlled by the people who live in it, and there's no hierarchies or anything like that. It's kind of like the end state of the economy. It's the finish line. And this is Romeo, by the way. This is not Phoebe, this is Romeo. And socialism is the political movement to bring about communism. So socialism is the sort of the way to push towards communism that starts now. This is either through authoritarian means, like socialist countries like the USSR, or there's democratic socialism, which wants to bring about communism via incremental change and elections. This is like, places like Sweden and like the long-term things of a real democratic socialist. People who like the policies of democratic socialists but don't want communism typically swap that around and become social democrats. Yes. And the next question I have is, where is the Israel/PLO video? And I can give you a date on that because I have that written down to when I'm going to work on it. I haven't started the script on it yet, but it should. It's the date I have right now for when the Israel video is going to come out is on March 22nd. So there you go. So March 22nd is the day the Israel video is supposed to come out. What do you think of the theory of axial age religions? I don't know what that is. Oh wait, I have heard about the. So like, there's like an age in the past where a bunch of religions formed. I heard about it, but I don't know that much about it. I already talked about this one. Do you believe prison should exist just for rehabilitation, or do you believe prison should exist just for rehabilitation and punishment? I don't think punishment is successful for prison. I do think that if prisons need to exist, that they exist for only the people who are extremely, extremely dangerous and will need time isolated from the rest of society in order to bring themselves to become a productive member of the world. But I do not think that that means that they should be treated as inhumanely as possible and put in horrible conditions. I do think that they are just kept in a kind of a locked situation in order to make sure that they're not violent to other people. And of course, that would always be seen as a temporary arrangement. Now, but as much as possible, if somebody does something that is antisocial and something that would be considered like a crime, would be something that, first of all, not like fake crimes like drugs and property crimes. Those are bullshit. But things like violence and abuse, and those are not even those are crimes that are about trying to figure out what went wrong, what is the process that led the person to commit such an act, and try to reintegrate them into society in a way that they will not do this act again. And that's hard. That involves a lot of resources and a lot of work, and it's difficult. All right. Do you believe that prison... Oh, yeah, I already read that one. All right. Speaking of AI, where do you stand on transhumanism? Transhumanism, genetics, cybernetic, robotic augmentation. Would you find interest in having a Cortana from Halo-style AI implant? Sure. I think that kind of stuff is part of our inevitable evolution. And I'm not exactly sure if you can... I think that that's those are things that we need to... that will make our world better and make things better for people. There's a lot of complicated stuff to talk about in that, but I'm running out of time super fast, so I can't really go into detail. Would you consider the U.S. and other developed countries to be quasi-fascist right now? Yeah, to an extent. The idea that a lot of countries use very hierarchical systems, very nationalistic, very appeal to tradition type stuff. Those are all very fascist type ideals. And in cases like the United States, they lean more heavily on the fascist side of things than others. But yeah, those are bad. Those are I do think that those are kind of the last vestiges of capitalism trying to hang on to a situation in which the way the world's changing is making people scared. And they're reacting. That's why it's called reactionism. Do you think that religion will be phased out in future generations? Is the Middle East even salvageable? I think that the Middle East is salvageable. I think that it'll take a long time. There's a lot of people who tried to solve their problems through violence that obviously didn't work. And it's created a lot of animosity over many, many generations. And I do think that religion, if it is going to continue, it's either going to create so much pain that people reject it outright, or it's going to evolve. It's going to evolve into something that's less dogmatic and less like monopolizing on people's life, and something that will be more just a series of values to live by. And so I think religion will not go away. I think that it'll probably mutate more than anything. I guess you aren't pro-Israel, but do you think that a two-state solution would and could actually work in the future? I don't think that a two-state solution is the solution anymore. If a two-state solution were to happen, it would be a pretty bad deal for the Palestinians. I think that at the moment, Israel, if it wants to begin the healing process, needs to find a way to make a country that integrates both Israel and Palestine and isn't called one or the other, and tries to reach out and become a multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multicultural state. I think that is what Israel should move towards, and unfortunately, it seems like nobody on either side of that problem are willing to do it at the moment. But that's my hope. If anybody can move towards Israel no longer being a Jewish ethno-state, or trying to have both religions and groups live together in some sort of way, you might see some progress. But at the moment, things look pretty grim for the time being, especially because the U.S. is just making things worse rather than better at the moment. What should it be called? Probably Israel Palestine, like hyphenated, or I don't know. I feel like they'd have to work it out. It'd be a thing. Do you keep people from having a distorted view of the world if we can tell our personal AIs to only tell us what we want to hear? It could happen. I'm not. I mean, there is the whole filter bubble problem. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people do, but also I would probably say that when it comes to things like filter bubbles, I actually would argue that we already do that to an extent, and that it's kind of a natural psychological inclination for a lot of people. And whether or not we have AIs, whether or not we have sophisticated AI technology filtering it for us, we're still going to do it. We always have. It's just easier now. How about war crimes criminal? War crimes, that's a difficult question. I'm not sure. I don't have solutions to everything. How will the concepts of masculinity and femininity would change in a post-capitalist world? Sorry, I'm just interested in the way that radically different society would work. Preferably, we would move away from having the thing about gender is that it is basically, so the definition of gender is the set of social expectations and performances that somebody has to do based on a perceived category based roughly on your sex. And I would think that any egalitarian person would, in the long term, want to undo those categories if they can. In the long term, in the today, that's kind of not the thing that you can do right now. And so, right now, fighting for gender equality as much as you can is really the optimal goal. Why is it important for minority languages to be preserved? In a way, if they disappeared, what would actually happen? And I say this as a Welsh speaker. I think that one of the things that's undervalued about language is that it functions really well as a way for us to change thought. Like, if you're a Welsh speaker, you probably know that you're a kind of a different person in different languages. And losing that, first of all, you are losing part of our, collective cultural heritage. But also, by learning new languages, you're learning how to think in different ways. And I feel like that activates parts of your brain that make you overall a more intelligent person. And so I think it's good for you. I think it's good to think of things in different ways. And there's no better way to think of the same thing in a different way than trying to word it in a different language. All right. All right. But if you think about it, apart from history, what use do they serve? History is a thing to serve. Archiving things and keeping them safe for future generations to hear is an important thing. What's going to happen to isolated / uncontacted tribes in the coming centuries? Well, it's pretty hard to become uncontacted. So over a long period of time, all of the uncontacted tribes are going to get contacted at some point. How that happens and the way that happens is up to us. There's a lot of uncontacted tribes that are going to be contacted soon because of the depletion of the rainforest in the Amazon and climate change leading the ocean to absorb certain islands. So it's a thing that's probably going to happen. It's just we have to find the right way to do it. Alrighty. That's actually the end of the questions. Does anyone have any more questions? Ooh. I feel like I was speaking in rapid fire there. Whew. No more questions. We have 6 minutes until the video comes out, so I'm going to keep you guys entertained for at least a little bit. I will repeat, Dungeon Dwellers. If you go to Dungeon Dwellers on YouTube, or if you go to Dungeon Dwellers on Twitch, you can find a YouTube channel that has a series called Tales from the Sanguine Isles, and that is the D&D campaign that I play in as a player. You can watch that. It's super fun. Or hang on, and on number, what's it called? On March 12th, there's going to be a new series that happens every 2 weeks that I will be the DM of, and it'll be exciting. What color is the sky? Come on. Pet the kitty. Is there another kitty nearby? I don't see any of my kitties. So what's the Israeli video about? All right, let's write these down, because I don't have a ton of time, so I want to get all these. I want to get as many of these as I can. Okay. Oh no. All right. Let's go. Let's try to do things. Do you like Star Trek Discovery? Not as much as I thought I would, but it still seems all right. It's good, not great, I guess I would say. Are you a communist? I mean, ideally, but I do see communism as a thing that is aspirational rather than something that we can make right now. It's a thing to move towards. It's a guiding North Star more than it is a thing that we can bring about like tomorrow. What's the Israeli video about? I'm going to try to explain why Israel is what it is, what it's done. It's going to be like kind of real brief history of Israel and what conflicts and fault lines are going on right now. I don't think I can propose any solution that will make anybody happy, but I can at least try to describe why things are the way they are. Do you think monarchy will rise again with the growing instability? No, I don't think that monarchy will ever come back in a big way. The only places that really have it around are countries that are fairly are fairly dependent on certain resources, and they're kind of in weird geopolitical situations. And I don't think that anybody's going to come. I don't think monarchies are ever going to come back. What do you think of worker-owned and run co-ops, just Publix and Mondragon, as a means to achieve worker control? I think it's a way to make things better. I don't think it's a way to solve the problem of capitalism, but it is a thing that you could do. I think that it's a good thing to do. I noticed from your videos that your political views are quite prominent. Is this your intention? Yes, actually, because my videos seem to be more successful when I do that, when I have something to say rather than I just describe a thing that happened. I do think that means I make more earnest videos about subjects I care about more. And for better or worse, it seems to result in more people liking the videos. So I just do it. Is it true that Indonesians don't have a certain... I don't know. Oh, yeah, that's not for me. Would the future have new and different ideology? Probably. As soon as we get to our post-capitalist economy, I'm sure we're going to think of some new thing to fix the problems of that society. And then we'll think of a new thing to fix the problems of that. So yeah, I do think that the ideologies of the future, a million years from now, we're not going to be fighting about capitalism and communism. We're going to be fighting over completely new things. Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? No, I have never been a member of the Communist Party. Mensheviks or Bolsheviks? I don't really know enough to say. Would the Queen of America if the Americans rebelled and were able to stop Trump from being prime minister? Would the Queen of depends upon the situation. If they were a constitutional monarch, then no. If America had a queen, the queen would be constitutionally obligated not to. But if it wasn't a constitutional monarchy, then yeah, then there's an absolute monarch. What does the United States ally with Saudi Arabia but call the biggest state sponsor of terrorism? It's because they're hypocrites and they're backing one geopolitical ally, and they call the rival of their geopolitical ally a terrorist. Taco Tuesday or Thursday? I don't know. I usually get Subway on Thursdays, so Thursday. All right. We're coming close to the end now. We have 30 seconds, so I think that's going to be all the questions for now. But thank you guys so much. The new video. Do I watch the Ultimate History Hub? Yes, I'm friends with the guy who runs the Ultimate History Hub. Anyways, you guys, this has been a great stream. Really rapid fire, lots of questions. Good stuff, guys. I have the new video. It's going to be out in like less than a minute. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Bam. It's a good one. It's about Mormonism. Have a good one.